My name's Phil Oldfield and I'm a Client Services Consultant at Macro4, offering technical account management for Macro4 products and services. I'll be moderating the session today and have a couple of colleagues presenting for you. Andy Parker is the Mainframe Products Consultant and Trainer, and Keith Banham is the Mainframe Products Research and Development Manager. After the presentation, there'll be a Q&A session where we'll address any questions that you may have. Before I hand over to Andy, from a housekeeping standpoint, I'd ask that all participants please mute their phones by hitting *6. You may unmute at any time by pressing *6 again. Alternatively, use the internal mute facility of your phone. As we present, you can use the chat window to feed us any questions you may have as the presentation proceeds. We'll take these up at the end in the Q&A session. I'll now hand over to Andy Parker for his presentation.
Thanks, Phil. I'm going to be concentrating on the mainframe modernization aspect today. Now, for most of its life, mainframe users just had traditional green screen applications. The developers just had normal green screen tools. First we did it with dumb terminals, and then we moved to emulators running on PCs. But what we found is that the end users have been demanding much more flexible ways of accessing their applications. Maybe they want to use the web, mobile devices. But the problem we have is that rewriting all that application code was and is a major task. Mainframe developers have seen the graphic tools used by non-mainframe developers, especially the Java developers. They also want that kind of help. Now, we agree. All mainframe users deserve better and easier interfaces. So what I'm going to do is show you a few examples of how we're helping to bring the mainframe world up to date. Web enablement of existing applications is one key area of development. What this does is it gives you flexibility in how you can access the applications. That works both for end user applications, but we also apply it to our own products. Within our fault analysis solution, it's always been a great help for application development, but what we're now doing is we're making use of the Eclipse framework, which has given us several opportunities to integrate our entire solution much better. So what we have is we have the M4 workbench, which is just our implementation of the Eclipse development environment. And within that, we have 4 main Eclipse plugins that we use for fault analysis. We have the dump master plugin, which is what we use to analyze and solve dumps when the programmer bends. We have the trace master plugin, which we use to debug the programs. We have an InSync plugin to help you manage test data both in files and in databases. And then we have a Z Explorer plugin, which we can use to submit jobs to Jez, to perform the dataset list utilities, and then view the output. Now, what we've also found is that there are several situations where developers' productivity could be improved if we got these plugins working a little bit better together. So, for example, you may be in Dump Master. You want to look at a file. That's fine if it's a sequential file, but if it's a VSAM file, what we need is to be able to then use the specialist VSAM accessing within InSync to help you look at the data in that VSAM file. Similarly, if you're looking at your files with the Z Explorer plugin, if you need the VSAM, again, let's switch and look at InSync for that. Maybe you're in TraceMaster. You're looking at the storage, the file section, but you want to just check and see what the actual content of the file is. Again, what we can do from TraceMaster, we can invoke the Z Explorer from TraceMaster and then look at the details of the file. Maybe you're in DumpMaster. You've got the program, you can see all the current values in the storage. Maybe you're not so sure how the program got to that stage. What we can do, we can take the information like the load library name, the program name, build a trace master project and do a trace. We can then step through and see exactly how the code got to the state that caused the event. And we can do that for both batch and for kicks. Now, rather than talk about it for too much, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go in and show you the workbench and just show you how easy it is to use these different integrations between the products. So I've got my M4 workbench. So we're looking at the dump master perspective here. So what I can do, I've got a couple of dumps here that I ran a couple of weeks ago. So if I double click on one of those, and the first thing I'm going to do is show you how we can look at a vsum file from within dump master. So we open up the dump. There we go. Now, normally when we want to look at files in Dump Master, we look at the I/O Summary tab. They're in the middle. So if I click on that one, there I can see we've got my main customer file coming in. So I can click on the link for SIS004. And then that tells me it's not able to display the records, but then that's because it's a vsum file. So if we look over on the right, the top right corner on our integration bar, we can see we've got an option there to launch InSync. So if I just click on that, there we go. We're now in and looking at the data within that vsum file from within Dump Master. Okay, let's close that and return to the dump. So I go click on the summary. So I'm now back looking at the main summary of the dump. Remember I mentioned maybe we want to go in and try and understand how the program got to this state. Well, again, if we look at the integration area, we can see there's an option to build a trace master project. So let's click that one. And so what it's doing now is it's extracting the information from the dump. I can click on the setup and then confirm that that is the step that's going to trace. So I can then have a look at the individual program within there, and it's already decided it's going to set a breakpoint at the start, allow me to map the tracing onto the program listing. It's found the load library as held in the dump. It's using the same symbol setting, so it's getting the listing from the same place as we did within Dump Master. So we're now ready to return to the overview and to run the trace now. Everything's set up. Simply a matter of clicking Run. And then we're in the trace. I don't know whether there's anybody who's not yet seen the debugger working. It's quite straightforward. All we can do is we can use the step icon and just execute one statement at a time. If we want to, we can expand concealed parts of the listing. I can click and set a breakpoint. So I've now set a breakpoint on the read statement. So what I can do there is we then have a run option. So I can now run the program to the next breakpoint. So it's now hit the break on there. If I want to look at the contents of that file, what I can do is return to the trace master. We see there's an option there for JCL. So down at the bottom, I can then select the dataset name, do a right click and choose to open a Z Explorer box. That opens up at the bottom. And again, this one's a vsum file. So if I now do a right click, I can choose to open it with the InSync editor. So again, from within the trace, we're now able to look at the contents of the actual file. So if I return to the trace viewer, now we can just go continue, we can step through under all of our control, remembering that we display the contents of the fields out of the previous instruction and as input into the next instruction. And then I think if I do another step here, it's probably going to append. Yep, there's my OC7. But of course, one of the reasons we went into this was to then go and see how the program got to that stage. We've got a drop-down menu. We can have a look and we can enter the backtrack mode, and I can then choose to go back through the instructions to see just what happened before we got to the append. Okay, that's it for the batch one. I can terminate the trace session and then return to the dump. And then if we've got the dump solved, I can then close the dump as well. So if I get back into dump master, I mentioned we can do it for kicks as well. Let's open up a kicks transaction dump. And we're in there, and again, just as before, we click the build the trace master project icon, and now what we've done is it's identified the kicks system where the program appended. We've got an entry for the program that caused it. If I select that entry, if it had sub-programs, I could get trace master to tell us or load those sub-programs, and we can choose to trace through those. As it is for this one, I just want to override that date check. So I can edit the entry, and then I uncheck the date check box. And if I scroll down, we see it's got all the traps have been set. For now, all I need to do to do the trace is I need to activate a trace session, and then we see in my trace session list, we can see I've now got an active. So it's sitting there waiting for a program to execute that will then cause this program to run. So what I need to do is invoke the transaction. Now I'm going to use another of our plugins, 3270 Access, to first of all log on to my kicks region. And then the transaction code for this program is 031M. We can see I'm now in wait, so if I go back into TraceMaster, I can then look at the trace list view and just refresh that, and there's my option, so I can do a right click and take over the trace. And again, I can just step through the program. In fact, this one's a very trivial one. I think I even get it to append on the send map. So I think you can see there, very, very easy to get into or to build a project for TraceMaster from within the Dump Master. And see also what TraceMaster's done in that top left in the TraceMaster Explorer. It's actually saved projects away. So what we can do is we can then rerun those traces without needing to go into Dump Master again to set it up. So all of those projects are reusable. I created both of those from within Dump Master. We could just as easily set them up manually if we wanted to. Okay, let's return to the presentation, because there's just a couple of other things I wanted to show you. We've also made a few other improvements to the TraceMaster plugin. We can now debug DV2 programs that use DSN ELI. That's where you execute IKJFT01 and feed the program name in through parameters. We can also trace IMS batch and BTS batch. What I want to show you now is what we've done to enhance our session manager, its tubes, to give you the ability to web enable the applications. I mentioned earlier the 1980s saw the introduction of session management software, which what it did, it gave concurrent access to multiple mainframe sessions, but it was using traditional 3270 or green screens. Even when it went from dumb terminals to emulators, functionally the session managers were doing pretty much the same thing for 30 years. Now what we've now done is we've produced a browser-based dashboard that's going to give you access to the same mainframe applications, and we use our session manager tubes to do that. Now these tiles that you can display, they're fully configurable, so if you have any images or logos you want to use for your applications, you can build those into it. And then we can access the original applications still in the same browser without needing to make any changes at all to the application code. Tubes does all of that conversion for you. Of course, if we're in the browser, another advantage is you don't need a computer. If you've got a tablet, you can work just as well on that. So we can now access mainframe applications on the move. You use the tablet's touchscreen to enter the data. In fact, this screen is actually showing the same Kix transactions I traced in my demo. Had we enabled that application with tubes, or made it also web-enabled, I could actually have executed the transaction from my tablet, which would have saved me even more time when I did the trace. And all this is done without changing any of your application code. So it gives you a practical way of web-enabling those applications where it would be difficult ever to justify rewriting them. So a quick recap of what I've been covering. With the fault analysis integration within the M4 workbench, your developers can now improve their productivity and make sort of better use of all the tools. And you can now use tubes to web enable any green screen application with minimal effort. Okay, that's what we've been doing. I'd now like to hand over to Keith Bannon to go through our future plans.
Thank you very much, Andy. And as he said, I'm Keith Bannon, the R&D manager here at Macro4, and I look after all the mainframe products. But of course that involves these days not just mainframe and 3270, but obviously Eclipse and web interfaces as well to our products. One of my key responsibilities is to make sure that all our products are ready on what we call day one support of IBM releases. There's a list there of various aspects of IBM that they ship on a regular basis, and of course, as most of you will know, that IBM has just announced a new version of Kix, TS 5.4. And again, our products, the ones that use Kix, and is mentioned Dumpmaster, Tracemaster, they will be ready, new releases that fully support Kix 5.4 on June the 16th when it's due to come out. And that's our sort of guarantee. We will support all of the IBM releases going forward. As we have in the past, there was big releases of PL1, 64-bit, COBOL. They did a couple of releases of the automatic binary optimizer. That's fully supported. And we're an IBM partner, and we get involved in all their early test programs, all their betas, and we attend all the technical disclosure meetings so that we know what's coming up and we can plan and make sure our products support it. Next area I'd like to look at is tubes, but this time looking specifically at the security aspects and a little bit on improvements to the web interface, or further improvements to the web interface. As Andy said, tubes used by most companies these days, although have a session manager, hopefully always tubes, and it gives you direct access from a single logon into all your applications on the mainframe.
But the key aspect behind Choose is the fact it's fully integrated into security. And it's also that centralized administration and control. You can determine what an end user can see, what they can access. You can sort out all the single sign-on so they don't have to sign on to every application. They can just sign on once, etc. And the security and the auditors love this product because of this control that they have. But mainframe security, well, what is it? It's an 8-character user ID and an 8-character password. Now, when I'm using my cash card to get cash out of a cash machine, I use my left hand and I cover my right hand as I key in the PIN. How many people at work cover their keyboard as they key in their password? I don't expect many of you do. How many people write the password up on a whiteboard behind their desk because they've got multiple applications to log into? How many people share their password? Oh, just use my password for the time being until we sort you a new one out, etc., etc. There's a flaw here. The security, mainframes are renowned for security, but this is a bit of a hole in the security, in my opinion. And of course, these days, as Andy was saying, you know, we put it on Choose, we put web browsers, and giving you accessibility. You can access the mainframe from anywhere, which might even be, you know, an internet cafe, for example. You suddenly get that call, you've got to log on quickly. Choose gives you that accessibility, but are you going to cover the keyboard while you're keying in your password? Again, there's a little security hole there. So IBM recognised this, and a couple of years ago they added a new product called multi-factor authentication that you install, and of course it's fully integrated with RACF. And what this gives you is a one-time password, i.e. a password that's generated that's only valid for a short period of time, say 60 seconds. So this is IBM's attempt at this, but you have to have additional hardware and software in order to generate this new password. IBM currently added 3 new options. The first one is the RSA Secure ID, the old fob, which had been around for many years, and you install Authentication Manager onto the mainframe, you register as a user, you get a PIN number, and then use that combination of PIN number and the fob number to actually log into your applications. But of course, you have to, you know, where do you put the PIN number? Where do you put the fob number? You know, there's instructions. You need to tell all your end users, etc. And they've put iPhone support in. So again, another piece of software for ZOS. You have to register your phone. You have to put the app on the phone, and then you use your fingerprint recognition in order to generate this code. And again, you need to know where to key into the application in order to log on the mainframe. And the last one, which is mainly for US government and defense personnel, they all get issued a common access card. And again, they use the card, they have a PIN number, web browser, they generate the code, they have to then go off to use that code to log on to the mainframe. So there's various options there, but which is best? Which one do you use? And how do you roll it out? We've got customers that have got 120,000 end users. They're not going to ship 120,000 fobs out to all their customers and say, right, as of January the 1st, you've now got to use the fob. No, they want to test it with a small team, a little department. Might test that, and they might allow people to use the iPhone. But when someone logs on, how do they know? Are they still on the old password system? Is it the phone? Is it the fob? What do I use? Well, this is where you should make use of your Tube session management software. You can customize the logon screens. So when a user logs on, you can give them specific instructions. So if they're a fob user, this is how you use the fob. This is where you put the PIN number. This is where you put the password. You can customize the screen. So the screen doesn't say, like it did before, you know, user ID, password, new password. You can actually say, user ID, enter your fob key here, enter your fob PIN number here. You know, you can put specific instructions in. And as you roll this out, you can change it as people change from device. Maybe it's a fob to an iPhone. Oh, I've got an iPhone now. Can I use the iPhone? You can easily customize the screen by user. So by using Tubes, you can use that as an enabler to roll out
the MFA multi-factor authentication across your users. And IBM has stated that they're going to come up with other options going forward. So how do you add those in? You have the same problem. You know, you've decided on one or two options. A third one comes along. How do you test that? Well, again, with the session manager, you can control the users, and it makes it much easier to roll out because you're only updating it in one place. And of course, once you're logged onto Session Manager, you can use the power of that for tubes and pass tickets and certificates to actually automatically log people onto their session. So again, they only have to log on once. Now, Andy showed you and spoke about the Choose web interface, which is very nice, but we're going to make a few extra enhancements going forward, which I hope people will take advantage of. Currently on the left-hand side, we have some preset filters. We're going to move those up to the top, and that'll leave that space there where we can then put in a session tree. And the idea between this particular screenshot, you can see at the bottom it says it has 12 sessions. Well, we have customers that have over 1,000 sessions that they give to their end users. So that's going to be hard for people to find. So we're going to allow them to group the sessions. Say you group it into retail sessions, so you have a little group for retail, you have a little group for finance, you have a little group for banking, etc., etc., making it easier to find. We're also going to add a favourites section so that you can add sessions into the favourites. So when you log on, you don't have to go and hunt for your session. It will be there. You know, there's 2 or 3 favourites that you always use going forward. So we're going to make a few improvements there. And of course, you've got the desktop. We've had people taking this on already, and they've come back with some suggestions, which is good. I'm always in favour of suggestions from our customer base. And some of them have been around, this is replacing their emulation software. And some of their end users like some of the capabilities in that software. For example, they want to change the colours. They want to change the font, or the code page, should I say. And they want to maybe large screen support. So we're going to add some end user customization into this, allowing people to do that type of stuff so they can change the colours and make it look as it used to look on their emulation software. We're also going to add in a virtual mouse. This is a desktop, but if you were using a tablet, it might be, if you've got big fingers, this might be quite difficult to actually click on the right field. So we're going to put a virtual mouse on there so that you can use your finger to drag the mouse around, and then you can just press enter, make it easier to use because most people are comfortable with using a mouse. And we're also going to make it easier to switch sessions. Currently, as Tubes users would know, in order to jump back to the main menu or to another session, you have to either key in a code with an escape character or use one of the function keys to escape. But you have to remember that. And if you've got ad hoc users or training new people, it'd be much easier actually if you have a nice little drop down and you just click on something that takes you to back to the main menu automatically. So we're going to add that in as well. The next area I want to look at is our performance products. One of our key products is the Eclipse product. And people use this so that they can keep an eye on their system. It makes it easier to find problems. If, for example, this particular report that it's produced is looking at job steps with a CPU time greater than 20 seconds. And there's all sorts of different reports. Another example, looking at files with an I/O count greater than 20,000. And there's a whole host. I mean, I think there's between 50 and 70 type of reports that come out. Lots of information. People use it for different aspects. There's a short list there, again, of different reports that come out. And the benefit of that is they can get to the bottom of problems. They can keep an eye on the system and make changes and correct problems much easier because they can see what's going on. But they were all 3270 screens. Wouldn't it be nice if all those reports came out with graphs and graphics and pie charts, etc. So that's what we're doing. We already have a product called Columbus Accounting, which is part of the Columbus suite, which I'll come to later. And what we're going to do is pass the Eclipse data into the Columbus Accounting product, and you'll be able to generate all these reports. We're going to ship a load of samples which will match up to the existing Expertune reports. But the advantage of this, if you run Expertune currently, you point it at your SMF dataset. You normally run this daily. But what happens if you want to do a comparison with last month? You have to go and find that SMF dataset and then run it with the two concatenated together, for example. With Columbus Accounting, this data is stored all together, which means that you can actually then go and write your own report, and you can actually look at every last day of the month for the last 12 months, or this time last year, etc. So using your own tools like Jasper, Crystal Reports, etc., you can actually generate your own reports going forward rather than relying on just the set that comes out of the Expertune product. So it gives you more flexibility. These reports are easier to understand. They're easier to put in front of senior management, etc., because it's much more visible, so it's easier to explain. They can see it without having to understand the 3270 compressed reports, if you like, view. So much easier to understand and to use. And we're looking to add our own products into these reports. For example, Dump Master, dumps by application. It'd be nice to know, if you've got a particular, or, KICS transactions, you've got a particular KICS transaction that falls over regularly. You need somebody to go and have a look at that. That might be impacting your online shopping system, for example. You might be losing customers because obviously if it falls over, that customer's probably going to hang and he's probably going to get fed up and he's going to go and use somebody else's website. So this type of stuff. So we're looking at adding in other metrics, products that are the first three are coming out shortly, and then we're going to be looking at others like the Columbus Z product for printing, so you can see how many printers are active, etc., etc. The next area I'd like to look at is mainframe data and how it plays a part in the enterprise information management. Now, we already have a product that deals with some part of mainframe data, which is the JES spool, all your print jobs. We have a product called Columbus Z, has a nice 3270 access to it, access to all your printers across your network, both VTAM and IP attached printers, and it will print jobs and it will send the jobs off to files, so files can then be fed into other applications that you might have running. It also feeds spool data into the Columbus suite, and this is a very powerful tool and allows you to distribute data across a whole suite of different output media and devices, etc. And I'll come back to the Columbus suite in a bit. What we've done with Columbus Z is we've added a web interface. Now the 3270 interface allows you to look at one Columbus Z instance, but the web interface, not only does it give you better accessibility and flexibility because you can use it from a tablet, mobile phone, web interface, so again if you're out and about, internet cafe from home, etc. But it also gives you access across the whole infrastructure. So you can see all the printers across all your LPARs and your different mainframes. So again, you get a clearer picture of what's going on across the whole piece. And a couple of screenshots here. This is just looking at all the printers, and it's easy to use. It's a web interface with drop-downs, etc. And here's one with all the jobs. Now, we're just about to release this soon, and the last piece we're going to do is we're actually going to modernise this slightly again and just improve the look and feel and the usability just before it comes out, hopefully at the end of June. Now, I mentioned the Columbus suite. And this is a powerful product. It's too big to cover in this particular session. There was a webinar on the latest updates to Columbus Suite early in the week, and they're recorded and they will go up on the website soon. So if you want to go off and listen to the recordings, please do. But the Columbus Suite will take data, business data, and it will distribute it as and where you want it. So digital delivery, B2B, print it, email it, etc., etc. Now, this falls into the category of communication management, content management, and we're into industry terminology and buzzwords, etc. And this is where it all fits in. It's a big area, and the Columbus suite covers off most of these. And as you can see here, customer communication, document composition, so you can take documents, compose them, add value to them like adverts, etc., and then distribute them, transform them. Business intelligence, so you can get reports coming out. Content management, so you can archive it, you can put it into a portal so people can access it via the web, etc., etc. And right in the middle of that is a process engine. So you can put your business process in there, so you can decide what data gets delivered to what mechanism or delivery process that you've decided for that particular person or groups of people, etc. And wrapped around that is a whole host of products, and as you see on the top right, there fits in the Columbus Z product because it delivers data, spool data into this process. And it's not really an IT product. It's not like Andy was talking about a fault analysis that would be used by the development team and the testing teams, etc. This is about your business, running your business. And these departments, your marketing, finance, sales, customer services, they're the ones that are using the Columbus suite to deliver data, deliver information where it needs to be and to who it needs to be sent to in the way that they expect it to be sent, all controlled within a business process. Now we have a product called AUTOMON that sits on the mainframe as well, and we've put a web front end onto that product. But the key to this is that AUTOMON also has a rules engine. So it can actually submit jobs and extract data. And this data can then be passed back into the Columbus suite. So if you've got mainframe data, well, along comes and you've got a nice little finance package. The finance department comes along and it says, we're printing all those reports on the mainframe at the minute, but wouldn't it be nice if we could email these reports out to the end users? Says the IT department, we'll add that facility into your finance package. I come back a couple of days later, we said we wanted to email it. Well, regulation says that we can't email all of it, we can only email some of it. The rest of it's got to be put into a web portal so that people have to log on securely to access it. Okay, we'll add that little facility in. How do you want to control that? It's got to be controlled by users, user by user basis, configurable by the end user. Okay, we'll start adding that facility in. Some of the users have come back and said, could they get a text message when the portal's updated? Okay, we'll start adding in that capability, and on it goes. And then the next department, I've heard what finance are doing now. Can we have that for our applications, and et cetera, et cetera. So you don't want to get involved in that. You want the mainframe to just deal with generating data. That's what it does best. That's what your applications do. Move the data into a tool set that delivers all this, has a business process in the middle of it, a workflow engine. Let that deliver the data to the end means, which is fully configurable by your marketing department, for example, rather than the IT department having to make code changes and application changes. And AUTOMON is the piece that will now get that mainframe data. It will talk to the workflow engine within Columbus, and Columbus will come along and say, I want this data. AUTOMON will submit the job. It will use either tools like Instinct to do the extraction, or maybe you've already got tools that generate data, so it can keep an eye on those tools, say, that tool's finished. I know where the data is. I'll now pass that into the business process so it can be delivered. So it brings that mainframe data. It makes it easy to get it into this very, very powerful Columbus suite. And there we have the picture again, but this time in the bottom left, we've got the AUTOMON product, and that's the delivery mechanism, the communication, the link between the mainframe and the powerful Columbus suite. And that's the time restricts me on what I can talk about. We're doing lots of other interesting development, but that's all we can cover off in the time today. So any questions?
Yes, thank you, Keith, for that, and thanks also to Andy for your presentations there. I hope everybody enjoyed the presentations and found them interesting. We've now opened up the call for questions and answers, and we'll answer any that come in via the chat facility as well. So does anyone have any questions on anything that they've seen today? Okay, I think we've got one or two here on the over the chat facility. So the first one up, this is about the Eclipse plugins. So yeah, are these a separate product to Dumpmaster, and how are they shipped, the Eclipse plugins there?
Yeah, the Eclipse plugins are shipped in two ways. And he mentioned the M4 Workbench, which is our shipped Eclipse framework. All the product Eclipse plugins are pre-installed into the Workbench, so they're already there. But they're also shipped as separate plugins. Therefore, if you've got your own framework, maybe you've downloaded the Eclipse framework natively, you can actually install our individual plugins. So if you're a Dumpmaster Tracemaster user, you can just go and install those two plugins. And if you're a Tubes user, you can just install the Tubes Eclipse plugins. So it's shipped in two ways.
Okay, we have got another one here. This is with reference to the Tubes web interface. So someone here has said that mentioned that the tiles on the web interface are customizable. Are there any restrictions on the types of images that you can use for these tiles?
No, it's any image that can be displayed within a web browser, really. So JPEG, a GIF, a PNG image. You just have to be careful of the size, obviously. I think it's 200 by 200 is the restriction on the size, so they fit into the tile. One thing we're looking at is making the tile sizes also adjustable. When we look at grouping, we might be able to get the tiles so you can have big tiles for your favourites and small tiles for your non-favourites, etc. So we are looking at tile sizes and making them more dynamic as well. But yeah, any image currently that you would expect to see on a web browser can be plugged in.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other questions from anybody out there, or are we satisfied with the answers so far? Okay, I think that's probably it for questions for this section. Yeah, thank you very much for your questions so far. Okay, just a quick summary then, to quickly run through what we've seen today. We've seen modernisation of our mainframe products with web interfaces added to our Columbus Z output management product, and also our Tubes session manager allowing web access to your mainframe applications. Andy demonstrated some of the new features in our Eclipse interfaces, and Keith took you through the way that we modernise performance reporting. Keith also showed you how to utilise your mainframe data as part of your digital transformation strategy. Thanks again for attending today's webinar, which I hope you found interesting. We'll make a recording of this session available for you. If you think of any questions after the event or would like any further information about any of the products or services that you've heard here today, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. My contact details are on the screen now in case you don't have them. And just to say, Macro4 have a presence on social media with both Twitter and LinkedIn accounts, so please give us a follow. Once again, many thanks for attending today, and with that, I'll bring the session to a close.